Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This is episode number 119. And since I announced what's going to be this episode's album of the week, again, I announced it on last week's episode, which was episode number 118, which was a focus on Victims of Rock from the obscure German metal band Rampage. It was at the end of that one where I announced what's going to be the album for episode number 119 here. Since we are here on episode number 119, again, this Monday, you see the title, you see the artwork, you know what it is. It is the second full-length album from Def Leppard, High and Dry. Originally released through, of course, both labels being Vertigo in both Europe and Mercury in the United States, and I think even Canada as well, on July 6, 1981. Again, also produced by Robert John Mutt Lange, which of course begins the relationship with Def Leppard and Robert John Mutt Lange. So there we go. So, after releasing their debut full-length album On Through the Night, which actually did decent for them. It reached number 15 on the UK album charts, and then it reached number 51 on the Billboard 200 charts in the United States. And again, they tour for it, again, also playing like the Reading Festival and so on. You know, they do fine. But it is at least from March to June of 1981 is when they get booked into Battery Studios in London, England. Again, bringing in producer Robert John Mutt Lange to produce the album. And that's where we then begin with, again, High and Dry. Recording the album and whatnot, and it gets released on July 6, 1981. So again, reaching its 40th anniversary here. So 40 years for this album. So let me just get into High and Dry, shall we? So, with High and Dry, it should definitely be noted that while Pyromania really shot them to the hemisphere, it made them mega stars. But this was the album. But High and Dry is the album that got them that got them hooked onto that rocket. Basically, it got them strapped onto that rocket, to where it would shot them. Of course, again, the person that would launch that rocket would be, of course, Robert John Mutt Lange. He was one in charge of basically controlling that rocket. And so everything just began with this album. And I mean, when it comes to earlier stuff, you know, Joe Elliott will come up with a lot of his stories on why, you know, on such and such. But to kind of tell you the truth, though, with at least early Def Leppard, since this is usually my favorite period of the band, the reason that they probably don't go back, and again, Joe Elliott will tell you all the reasons why they probably will not play a lot of the material off of On Through the Night. Though I think they kind of did. They don't really bust out a lot of it all the time, but he always has some sort of excuse for why. He always goes by, because of it just reminds us that many people tried to put us a part of the new wave or British heavy metal movement. You know, it's just that sort of reminder. We don't, because we didn't want to be a part of that movement. It was a stupid movement. You know what? Yada 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 yada. Whatever. Shut your fucking pie hole. No, I'll tell you the fucking reason for why they probably don't play anything as all the time off of On Through the Night. It's because of, I guess, compared to High and Dry, it only reached number 51 on the Billboard 200 in the United States. Because he only cares about what fucking does well in the United States. That's all. He cares on what charts in the United States, because that was the goddamn demographic he was shooting for. He was shooting always for that fucking that demographic. But compared to at least, because I mean, High and Dry only reaches 38 on the Billboard 200 chart in the United States. Again, a little bit higher above On Through the Night, their debut album. However, on the UK charts, because obviously he seems to not really care about what fucking charts in his own fucking country, is where he's from. because it positioned at number 26 in UK album charts, because of it charted at number 15 on the UK album charts. So there you go. He's already kind of made up his fucking mind where he's gonna overlook you. He would purposely would ignore his own fucking UK's album chart, and because of obviously, I guess, Saxon and whatnot, and maybe even Iron Maiden and Judas Priest did better, and that's all he's mad about, I guess. I don't know what's the fucking issue there, but it definitely seems to be a little bit. It's just weird to me. I think it's like, okay, that's the goal they were shooting for the U.S. market. However, on High and Dry, a lot of the stuff on this album was still was still a work in progress for a long time, because some of these songs actually originally were at least at one point in their infant state had a different title and were being played during their early period. I mean, Let It Go actually went by a different name here. Let me actually go. It's actually When the Rain Falls. Let It Go used to go by When the Rain Falls, actually, on this album. And then, of course, songs like Lady Strange was also being worked on. Again, the earliest recordings of these two songs, Lady Strange and Let It Go, being when it was under the original name of When the Rain Falls, again appears at the Live at the New Theatre in Oxford of 1980. That's how long they were working on these songs. So they were definitely yep. That's how old that these two songs were, and so they basically reworked on the lyrics and the Lady Strange stayed the same though. It stayed the same, but Let It Go just got a new title basically again. So there we go. So I guess this just brings us to the fucking title, because of I should definitely go into the track listing here before I babble anymore on. So here we go. Let me definitely just mention the track listing before I go anywhere further. Again, we have at least 10 songs here. It all clocks in at 42 minutes and 15 seconds. So again, the 10 songs being the aforementioned Let It Go, Another Hit and Run, the title track, which is being titled here as High and Dry, Saturday Night, Bringing on the Heartbreak, Switch 625, You Got Me Running, Lady Strange, which I already mentioned, On Through the Night, which again, crazy how they basically go with the Queen formula here, where they'll wait albums later to actually write a song for at least one of their albums that at least has a title based off their album, instead of for that an actual album, because they did the same thing with Sheer Heart Attack. They had their third full-length album was Sheer Heart Attack, but they wouldn't record the song Sheer Heart Attack until News of the World. So there we go. They went that formula. And then, of course, go into Mirror, Mirror, Look Into My Eyes, and then finally ending with No, No, No. So there's at least your 10 songs. So let's definitely move on even further, finally. So, so look at some of the track listing. There is definitely more bigger hits on this album. Again, it garnered more radio hits. I mean, High and Dry was a decent hit for itself. Same goes for, of course, Bring on a Heartbreak, which is probably the most known song that you actually hear ever played on the radio. For most of the part, it is the biggest song. It's a power ballad, but I think it's probably the best power ballad they had ever written and recorded. Because besides a couple of the decent ballads off of Power Mania, after a while, everything just became forced and didn't really have a lot of the fluent consistency of at least some of these earlier ballads that they came up with. Nothing that ever came close to. That's about it. And of course, I should definitely mention that the song "Me on My Wine" was which was recorded during the sessions, didn't get used until as a B-side to, of course, Bring On the Heartbreak. Of course, there exists two versions, a remix version, and of course the original version. I think the original version was only on a 7-inch, whereas the remix ended up on the 12-inch, I believe. So there we go. But either way, this again, they will tell you that they always opted to try and breaking into the American market. But to me, with High and Dry, and for certain moments off of Pyromania, this is probably one of the last album where they sounded more British. They still have. I mean, of course, Robert John Mutt Lange, yeah, he gave him a more of a bigger production. He made him sound bigger than Tom Allom had on Through the Night. But at the same time, musically, I mean, yeah, I do have to mention, Robert John Mutt Lange does kind of make the Def Leppard sound a little bit like AC/DC. He does. And I definitely should mention that when listening to this album, it just dawned on me how, when people, I should bring up an example. You know, a lot of people definitely say about Rick Rubin and how that a lot of the albums that he produces, he always tends to take takes how much he wants the drums to sound, how much he wants the guitars to sound. He always goes back to, like albums like either Back in Black or some of his other albums. He always knows a way to somehow use the same sort of formula trick for his producing methods, where it's like he'll take the drum parts with certain albums or his snares or whatnot and applies it to any album that he's producing. I felt like Robert was doing the same sort of trick with this one because of all the albums he's produced. He somehow figured out what he wanted to do with Def Leppard. Basically, the way with the drums, the drumming stuff on this album is that the drum snares on here sounds identical to the fucking drum snare sound on Foreigners 4, which was an album that he produced, which came out at least a year. I think actually, you know what? I think it might have been the same year. I think both High and Dry and Foreigners 4 both came out the same year, so they around the same time. So he was already got done fucking producing it, and he decided to take the same drum snare sound from that album, place it onto this one, but also decided to take the fucking guitar tone from Highway to Hell from AC/DC, because it's got the same fucking guitar tone as Highway to Hell. I wouldn't say Back in Black, but it's got the same sort of almost distorted bite of Highway to Hell. So he took both the guitar tone of fucking Highway to Hell and then took the fucking drum snare sound of Foreigners 4. Now, if you go back and listen to those two albums and then listen to this one, I think you'll now hear the fucking similarities in the production sound and what he fucking did. Because he copy-pasted shit, almost, it seems like. Because, again, he's always onto that fucking drum sound. He's all that, how he wants to sound. And I'll get to later on this year, I'll get to the sort of story behind fucking For Those About to Rock from AC/DC. I'll get to that, which is one of the main reasons why AC/DC ended their relationship with Robert John Mutt Lange. But because those guys were seasoned, they'd been in it for at least many years, a lot longer than Def Leppard. Def Leppard were much younger, and they were more susceptible to getting their fucking brains completely smashed, where they thought this is what they wanted to do. So, whatever. Because they had since they were young, they were willing to fucking just to work it out. Though it kind of almost it tested them a little bit when it came to around Hysteria. But at the same time, you can't really fault Mutt Lange for that one, because of that all comes back on drummer Rick Allen. That all comes back on him for what, which I won't get to yet. But either way, besides those kind of things I kind of found as an album, this is probably the last, to me, one of the last good albums I think Def Leppard put out. I mean, I love fucking Let It Go, and Another Hit and Run. I mean, this is a great 2-1-2 punch on that album, actually, it feels like, because if they all just go, it runs into one track. I love how they do that. Going from Let It Go to, of course, Another Hit and Run. I love that sort of transition. Just it almost makes it one long song, which they would do again with later within this album on the first half, actually, all on the first half, from Bringing on the Heartbreak to the instrumental Switch to 625. There's some interesting story behind that one. But there's everything, again, I also like the title track. Again, it does have that AC/DC flavor, but it They find a way on making that formula somehow seem original to them, it seems like, especially when you got songs like You Got Me Running and Lady Strange, and then I would say those other two songs right there both have that kind of formula too. They're a little more lightweight compared to like the title track and Another Hit and Run and Let It Go, but they still have at least they've got a hook to them, and that's one thing, is the hooks in this album are way out better than the hooks that they try to do on some of the later albums because of what they had in mind. Again, I'll take any of these fucking songs over Pour Some Sugar on Me, which I should just say, pour some bullshit. Fuck that. Fuck that song. And fuck almost all the shit on Hysteria. Again, I think that after that, everything becomes completely unlistenable. But still, everything is just, there's nothing bad on here. And it's, again, you got some heavier numbers on this one still. Still got that, still remind you of when Def Leppard was, again, Joe Elliott always will tell you something different, but you go and listen to some of these albums right here, especially some of the songs on this album, it's not that different from what Tigers of Pantang were putting out. It's not all that different from fucking Samson or Saxon or whatnot. It's not that fucking different from any of them. I don't get the obsession with why they didn't want to be a part of the movement when almost everyone sounded the fucking same during it. And then Def Leppard tried to almost sound like the rest of the fucking pack, or everyone else wanted to sound like them. Blows my fucking mind with the reasonings and wherever they get their shit from, and the stuff they come up with. But either way, you listen to some of the songs like On Through the Night, and of course here and there maybe with No No No, for example, too, and Another Hit and Run, and then Let It Go. They're not all that different from a lot of the new wave or British heavy metal bands. It's not all that fucking different. So it sounds almost very similar. It still reminds the people of what movement they were a part of. Whatever fucking Joe Elliott says, it has that reminding of that movement because some people love that sort of nostalgia. It's not that fucking difficult to understand. God damn it. But I digress. Still, there's just plenty of great rockers. I just love the sound from beginning to end. There's just nothing wrong with this one. Again, the instrumental here is definitely another highlight. Again, everything just works on this album. I mean, On Through the Night may have definitely had some more Thin Lizzy influences. Definitely sounded more closer to the new wave or British heavy metal movement. The same thing with, again, online with their demos. But High and Dry still sounds British. It still has that British metal feel, and of course Pyromania, besides the overbearing production job on that one, it's still, the riffs were still there. Everything just didn't get overbearingly American or poppy or whatnot they tried to fucking do until Hysteria. That's where everything just fell apart. But I'll tell you a story though. I'll tell you a little bit of story on some of my memories of High and Dry and Def Leppard here. I'll tell you this. Since, of course, this was released on July 6th, I'll tell you this. That's my birth date. I was born on July 6th, 1995, and right around the time of, I think it was 2004. I want to say it was 2004 for this year. Was it 2004 or 2003? Might have been that one of those years. It's one of those years. I you know what? I kind of forget what age I was thinking. Because I don't really pay attention to a lot of what year I was, what my age was all the time. But I'll just it's still. I think the story is what matters. Again, I think it was 2004. It really does come back. It is 2004, and I'll tell you this. When my dad was working at, I think it was Harris Ranch, all right, and then this goes into the story. We again, by this time we already had a computer. We already figured out about burning CDs, not well. He borrows a couple of CDs. I think one of them might have been the Razor's Edge from AC/DC, because I hadn't at that time. That was actually the first time I actually had heard the Razor's Edge. Cowboys from Hell from Pantera, because if this was the same year that Dimebag Darrell, I think, had passed away. This was the same year, but I don't know, around the same time. Might have been. Well, Adrenalize from Def Leppard was in this pile there. And so this was Adrenalize was, again, it's shocking, but it was my introduction to Def Leppard. So that's why I got a bit of a slight soft spot for Let's Get Rocked, which again, I know it touches nothing off of High and Dry or On Through the Night or even at times Power Mania. You know, it doesn't touch any of that. But it's still, there's a little bit of a nostalgia towards it that somehow I kind of register with. Still, that was my introduction to that album, and of course then Dad telling me about the whole situation with Rick Allen and his arm and whatnot, all these stories. I think it was a year later, it might have been 2005 now that I think about it, that since we're kind of getting in to it, I think my dad was then beginning to bring out, you know, a lot of his vinyl records. He was beginning to bust out some of those records. Well, one of the records that he decides to bring out is High and Dry. And so this turned into the second Def Leppard album I ever listened to. So it was High and Dry. That was my second record. This was the second one I heard from him. And so just hearing the first notes of Let It Go, I'll tell you this about Adrenalize. Compared to High and Dry, Adrenalize, besides only one song, I can never remember the rest of the fucking album. Even to this day, I still don't remember much, even though I remember one of the fucking titles off the song, which is one of his, like, Make Love Like a Man, which is, you know what, enough. I don't want to talk anymore about that, even though I have nothing against people being homosexuals, but at the same time, I think there comes a point where it's no problem with writing songs about, you know, making love or whatnot, but at the same time, there's also a point where you come off a little too fucking cornball for the sake of it, and it just makes it sound just so goddamn hokey. And I think they got to that point. So with a song like that, so it's like stupid. But I could barely remember some of the shit off that album. High and Dry, I remembered most of. It hit me way more. It really resonated with me much more than Adrenalize. Adrenalize didn't do shit for me. It didn't do anything. This High and Dry was the first one where it just immediately clicked like that. Like the fucking switch just turned on. And so when it came to my birthday, again, July 6th of that year, we go to, of course, Tower Records, when Tower Records was still around in Fresno, California. So we go into there, since, again, always giving birthday money, always buying stuff, so whatnot, going in there since I was really getting into music stuff. This was really where my fascination, my love with fucking music came of, especially the rock and metal stuff. It was all beginning here. And so going into there, one of the couple of CDs I remember picking out, besides also getting a Herman Munster action figure, because at the time I was, my dad always would throw on like the old fucking, the old TV shows on, like, I think TV Land, or even of course, when WB in the WB network in the early mornings would air a lot of the old stuff, like the Andy Griffith Show, and then of course the Munsters. So I always loved that fucking show, and so that was one of the figures that was there. And so one of the CDs I ended up picking out for there again was Queen Life Killers, The Very Best of Dokken, and third one, High and Dry from Def Leppard. Finally getting on CD instead of just listening to it on record. It was like I did listen to the record yesterday, the record copy, when prior to recording this, but this is where it just brought back a lot of memories. Of course, to bring in somehow the money, the dollar that I was given. Apparently, the fucking store wasn't, or at least the guy at fucking freaking Tower Records apparently couldn't register the fucking dollar for some fucking reason, and almost didn't want to pay for it. He didn't want to take the money at all until that got all resolved, and then we finally bought the shit. So it was stupid. It got a little dumb there, but that's my that was my memory And of course, again, driving on to my grandpa's and grandpa's to fucking swim, throwing on High and Dry in the car. So those are just some of my biggest memories of growing up with this album. It all began there, and I listened to the shit out of fucking High and Dry, to a point where I almost got a little sick and tired of it. But now coming back years later, and now I still love this album to this day. I can again have no problem putting it on, but I don't put it on all the time because I listened to it a whole lot of times when growing up. But it's a big memory for me, and it definitely resonates a lot. Again, it just brings back a lot of nostalgic memories for me. It's why I always hold the album to my heart, because of that. So there's just that's why. And of course, it's always great when looking back at some of these albums, because again, at the time of the mid or late 2000s or early 2000s, everyone was always into whatever the fuck was on the mainstream. I was like the only one kid in school that liked whatever my dad liked. I liked the older shit. Somehow it just resonated better with me than it really did with whatever was being played on the fucking radio. Of course, my brother had more tolerance for a lot of mainstream stuff, except for certain stuff. Except for a lot of the hip-hop and pop shit. Some of that just was... It was horrible during that fucking period. Some of it was just bad. But a lot of the stuff, the more modern rock or metal stuff that I think... I forgot the radio station. But there was a particular radio station that was playing a lot of that. Oh god, I forgot already what it was called. But there was a decent enough metal station. And yeah, while they'll play a lot of the popular shit like Korn and Limp Bizkit and bullshit like that half the fucking time, half the time you might hear a decent song from Metallica. You might actually hear maybe a Megadeth song. You'll probably at times maybe hear even an Anthrax song, maybe if you ever pay attention. There might be something, or even an Ozzy Osbourne song. They'll actually would play something. Again, for a kid like me who was growing up, it's like that was interesting. It was always something different, hearing that. But either way, that was kind of that. Again, that was always getting played, but the thing is, I mostly liked whatever my dad was throwing on. That's why I got into Blue Oyster Cult, and so Def Leppard, it was kind of the same here. So that's why I've got such a memory with this album. So there we go. Again, I just wanted to kind of bring up that little story here, since it's always something I think I was always suggested, just bring up a lot more of your personal stories of growing up with these particular albums. What was your memories of this stuff, and I like bringing up memories like that along with these videos, because it adds something interesting to it, and then it's me just talking about my opinions on a lot of the songs, and of course, whatever my thoughts on whatever the fucking members are just saying, wherever is just getting shot out of their fucking ass all the goddamn time because they have to put a microphone up to them. So, whatever. Well, that's about it. So, after High and Dry is released, it does decent for them. Again, like I just mentioned, for its charts at this time, again, it reaches number 26 on the UK album charts. Again, it was much lower than compared to their first album, On Through the Night, which is really surprisingly. This is an album that everyone says is the first really good album, but it charted not as very good, since of course you always artists like to always look at how much their albums charted. Surprisingly, this is the album that charted less compared to their first record. And of course, it charted number 31 actually at the Sweden album charts here on Wikipedia, and of course charting at number 38 in the Billboard 200 in the United States. And of course, this album did in the USA reached 2 times platinum. So basically, goddamn, 2 times platinum on the RIA charts, or RIA, in 1992, but it actually reached the CRIA platinum in 1988. I know I probably worded all that weirdly, but that's just the way I'm reading fucking Wikipedia here. So, platinum earlier in Canada for the CRIA, and then in 1988, and then finally reaching 2 times platinum in 1992 in the United States for the organization of RIAA. So there we go. Very interesting, but to definitely bring up, this would be the final full album, or at least the final album where Pete Willis is really a full-time member. Because after this, while he would successfully record his parts for at least Pyromania, he would then ultimately leave within the sessions of Pyromania and then get replaced by Phil Collen. So there, again, formerly of the band Girl, which, of course, Girl is best known for, of course, featuring Phil Lewis on vocals, that being, of course, the most known singer for LA Guns. There you go. So that's it. High and Dry. 40 years old, because again, it was released on July 6th of 1981. So 40 years for this album. There we go. Again, just like me sharing my memories and thoughts on this entire album, you know, I'd like to definitely know, what are your memories of growing up with this album? You know, what are your thoughts? Again, if you have any negative or even positive comments, especially if you got negative, depending on who's subscribed to me. Again, if you feel like you want to try and share those thoughts, you can share them in the comment section below. But if you've never really listened to this album, and again, I probably almost would say, I guess that means you must be living on a rock if you've never listened to High and Dry. But I know that there are some people that never really listened to this album, and at the same time, there's probably many, they have their reasons for why they probably never did. But if you are at least one of those who want to give Def Leppard a shot, and are looking for an album to want to listen to by them, or would just give them a chance, I would say either this album or even their debut, I think, are decent enough. I know some people always will put this one above On Through the Night. And I think, again, I do like On Through the Night a lot. It is definitely another favorite album of mine. But High and Dry is definitely a decent, or at least a good enough beginning album for you. If you want to get a decent, just a snapshot of when they were still sounding young and hungry. And not before they just sounded, well, we love about where we are, and we're going to stay that way with fucking high hysteria and whatnot. You know, we're comfortable in our fucking spot. No, if you want a good shot of them when they were at least young and hungry and wanted to be somewhere, this is at least a good enough album where it will give you that kind of that. It will give you that snapshot. It will be a good album for that, to hear how they were. So there we go. That's it. So for episode number 120. What is going to be that album? What's going to be that album of the week episode, huh? Well, let's look. Since, of course, episode number 119 is done. It is ended here. Let's see. Oh, look. Speaking of a really classic album, what is going to be episode number 120 is going to be a album spotlight on another second album and another big, or actually, no, not a second album, excuse me, it's a third album. It's a third album. Sorry to kind of just confuse you there. I was confusing myself. No, it is a classic third album. Again, not a whole lot of bands are able to kind of top to at least make a slew of, you know, 3 albums that are like considered classics within that sort of period. But Black Sabbath is one that did it apparently, and that's Master of Reality. So now again, it's considered a classic third album, and so far beyond the sophomore slump effect, far from reaching that sophomore slump that a lot of record magazines or fucking music magazines like to fucking tell you about. The sophomore slump, even though fucking Rolling Stone never liked Black Sabbath to begin with, but now they'll say they liked Black Sabbath. Fucking goddamn hypocritical dick lickers. Fuck whatever Rolling Stone thinks. They never meant the fucking dime in the world when they first came around. They never were. They were goddamn trend hoppers. So fuck Rolling Stone. So, but this is what's going to be in episode number 120, Master of Reality from Black Sabbath. There we go, because it's reaching 50 years. 50 years for that album. There we go. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash saying I am out. And I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.